We start with an opus on the Jets. An article written by Diana Rossini, Mike Silver, and Zach Rosenblatt in The Athletic paints the Jets as, quote, the most dysfunctional place imaginable. I imagine a lot of places. The article is chock full of Woody Johnson anecdotes. Here are a few faves from the staff. He vetoed a Jerry Jeudy trade because Judy's Madden rating was too low, and he was getting that intel from his sons. He wanted to keep the Mr. Irrelevant pick in the Zach Wilson trade because he wanted his own sort of Brock Purdy Cinderella story. He wanted to pick that, so he offered up an earlier.
He offered up a better pick.
Story, right?
Because he wanted that.
I like that one.
And I kind of like the Madden rating one, for the record.
And then former GM Joe Douglas reportedly said, I answer to a teenager, speaking to how much power Woody Johnson's sons had. So there was a lot. That's just some stuff.
Yeah.
A lot to dig into. What was your biggest takeaway?
All right, so the Madden stuff is what is being shared all over the internet. The far more damning stuff was about his.
That's not damning.
And I think the more damning. I don't think that was the most damning piece of the article. I thought the most damning piece of the article was an anecdote that the Jets confirmed happened, which was Mike White being frustrated after a game, throwing his helmet, and then Woody saying for people to hear, basically, you should be mad, you suck. And I know Jet fans, Jet fans have made a cottage industry led by their Pied Piper Aaron Rodgers of attacking the great Diana Rossini, and they would love to, I'm sure, attack her on this, except the Jets responded on the record to that accusation with the following: Woody apologized. So I think that one's pretty well confirmed. The other one is, and I don't want to go after, and I'm not going to go after his kids, but because I think one's 18 now and one's 15. They're about maybe 14 and 18, but they're still 19, kids.
He's fair.
No, but they didn't. But him allowing his sons into the locker room and not recognizing, they're teenagers. They might act like teenagers, and then them acting like teenagers by talking trash about their own players. And at one point after the win on Halloween, when Aaron Rodgers is getting ready to present Ulbrich with the game ball, one of the sons, the 18-year-old, saying, no, Garrett Wilson game ball and holding his own court. That's on Woody. Like, that is Woody's responsibility. And so my biggest takeaway, Brew, was this is, without question, the worst job opening in football.
Yeah.
And they are going to regret rebuffing Bill Belichick's phone calls.
That's been out, but I'm just saying the fact that he was interested in
because Bill knew no one else in the NFL evidently wanted to hire him. Like there's no chance they're going to get someone like Ben Johnson. I think there's no chance they get Mike Vrabel.
Agreed.
I think that of all the openings, like the Saints is open and they're in cap hell and it's kind of odd ownership there as well, that's a better job. The Jags might be open. That's a better job. Everything's a better job than this one because you can't overcome incompetent, meddling ownership. And that's what the Jets have.
Yeah, I mean, that was my biggest, one of my biggest takeaways was, and you guys have heard me for years. And some people think I'm crazy when I say the biggest problem with the Dallas Cowboys is Jerry Jones and the ownership.
What about the sunlight?
And I mean, what about
the sunlight?
It's on the board.
What about the sunlight?
Yeah, right. But when your ownership, if it's really involved, sets the culture. And when you have a bad, a meddling owner and the culture is bad, it's tough to overcome. I remember when LeBron James was his first stint in Cleveland. The year before he ended up going to Miami. But remember, he was going to be a free agent. Everybody was talking about it. And I was talking with LeBron about it, like a private conversation. And he was saying, whatever I do, I'm looking at ownership and the organization. And he talked about how the teams that have won recent championships in the last 10, 20 years all had great organizations. And he was like, organizations win championships. He ends up going to Miami with Pat Riley running the show, and that the rest is history. So ownership is critical, and I agree with you. You can't overcome it no matter who you bring in as GM, coach, and all that. The second thing that struck me from this article it kind of, and you might not like this, Nick, it kind of took Aaron Rodgers off the hook.
I was going to say that.
Right?
I totally agree.
It said Rodgers didn't want Robert Saleh fired.
Mm-hmm.
It said Rodgers actually in the offseason when they were considering other offensive coordinators that he actually made phone calls recruiting some of the offensive. It was Eric Bieniemy. It was 4 of them. Bieniemy, Arthur Smith, and a few others. And so a lot of this that we put on Aaron Rodgers, at least from this article, seems like it really wasn't on him, which to me going forward is another check mark in the box of, well, maybe I will bring him back. If he's really not running the show and, messing things up like it's been reported and we've thought, then if he plays well, if the players are with him, and I got to pay him $50 million, or at least that's my dead cap hit if I cut him, maybe I don't feel that bad about bringing him back.
If I may, just real quick on the Rodgers point, it did also include that Robert Saleh, the day before he got fired, when he let Rodgers know I'm going to demote Nat Hackett, and this was confirmation of previously reported stuff, that Rodgers was so upset that Saleh told the staff, get ready, tell Tyrod to get ready because I think Aaron might not play. So you're right, it did make it clear he doesn't have the blood on his hands on Saleh's firing. I don't know if I felt he was necessarily covered in glory in the article, but it's a fair,
better. He looks better. He looks better.
Better than Woody for sure.
Secret winners before we move on. Off of your Aaron Rodgers point.
Yeah.
Sam Darnold, same type of thing. Like, I've now seen Sam Darnold go to an organization that doesn't work, Carolina, and he doesn't work there. San Francisco, he gets a lot of praises. Right. And then Minnesota all of a sudden. So you know what I'm back on?
What?
Oh, I'm back.
On what?
Look, no one can win in that environment.
What does that have to do with anything?
Zach Wilson.
Oh, okay.
Zach Wilson might be back, everybody.
Okay.
Hey, give it a shot.
I mean, look.
Think about it.
Geno Smith, who was, Geno Smith, Sam Darnold, and Baker do show you that give these guys some rope. You never know what they might become in a good situation.
All of those guys were far, far better college players, and none of those guys on their next stop were immediately the third stringer. So I'm going to go ahead and say Zach Wilson's not the guy.
Buying low.
But I want to just say one other thing quickly about the Jets before we move on, because I do think you guys are right. They might bring Aaron back. And when that happens, we are going to at some point go through another, in my opinion, asinine Jets hype train moment. And I would just implore the audience to just remember this week when that happens. The Jets, fresh off their best win of the year, probably their most optimistic moment of the season, other than the second drive of Game 1 against San Francisco when they looked good in that drive. Because even when they got to 2-1, they didn't have optimism because that was when Rodgers shoved Saleh or pushed Saleh like they didn't have it. So they were at whatever their highest had been was this week. And immediately the following happens. All of a sudden, it's like, wait, does Garrett Wilson want to be traded? There's a news cycle around that. Then it's like, well, probably got to trade either Garrett or Brees. I don't understand why, but there was news cycle around that. Yeah. Rodgers picks a fight with Ryan Clark, further inflames a fight that maybe you could say Ryan picked, but Rodgers then, and then reminded everyone he's still not over the vaccine stuff. No. And then this opus comes out about the team and the owner, who, by the way, the only thing the Jets had going for him was, man, he's going to be off in England. And it turns out even Trump was like, Woody, I can't deal with it. So, not great for the Jets.
Well, I agree with you. If he was back and Devontae's back, there will be those.
Oh, my.
Now, it won't be me again.
I don't know, bro.
It won't be me again. No.
Someone on the show is going to do it. It's not going to be us.
I don't know about that.
It will not be me, but there will be a lot of people thinking they're going to do something.
Yeah, I can't wait for Greeny's
don't
next
hold me to that, but I'm just saying.
Steelers at Ravens, Saturday afternoon on Fox. Ravens about touchdown favorites, even though the Steelers are Lamar's kryptonite. One caveat here. Now, because of the pandemic, Lamar has never played the Steelers in Baltimore with fans.
Interesting.
Okay, Lamar's numbers against the Steelers, 1-4, only 19 points a game, Brew. 11 turnovers, that's a big one.
It's ridiculous.
So is it more important for Lamar to win or play well, regardless of the outcome?
Well, first I'll say this. The news that he's never faced them at home with a crowd makes me feel a little better. I mean, really.
And the fact that he's into it, too.
Yeah, and he recognized it. But this is a good question because he hasn't played well individually. It's not just the L's. But obviously you want both, but they got to win. Even if he plays poorly, they got to win. Because, first of all, the division, AFC North, like Pittsburgh clinches the division if they win. If Baltimore wins,
They're alive.
They're alive. And the Steelers play Kansas City and Cincinnati.
Yep.
If Lamar plays great and they lose because Justin Tucker's missing field, which is why they lost the last game, or a big part of it, or the defense gets run over, you're not going to feel any better if you're the Ravens. I don't think. I don't think you will. I mean, it would be nice. Oh, Lamar, okay, he got over the hump. But still, these are things that have plagued you, and you won't. I don't think you'll feel much better. Yeah, that'll be a silver lining, but I don't think you'll feel great. And the third thing is, all of these losses, they've lost 8 of their last 9. Lamar's 1-4 against them, but they're 1-8 against them over the last 5 years or so. All of them have been close. All of them within a touchdown, 7 points or less. So if they beat you again and it's close, it just reinforces like, what do we have to do to beat this team? And now the noise feels like Marlon Humphrey said he didn't even know before last game that they were on this losing streak against the Steelers. So the noise is getting louder and louder and louder. If you lose again, it's just going to be that much more louder. So I think they got to win there.
I will give the specific answer, but the real answer is both. Both must happen. And must happen if for the Ravens to be a contender. Because, listen, I know this doesn't resonate with Brew, and Wilds oddly thinks it's unfair, but Dusty, the graphic. Because you have Lamar against the other multi-time MVP that's still a star, his hated sworn rival, or just the team in the
minus
division.
the Bengals. Where are the Bengals?
Hold on, Brew, I'm begging you. Nobody thinks Ravens-Bengals is the same as Ravens-Steelers.
But it's still a rivalry.
Yes, just not your main
Joe
rival.
Burrow?
Yes,
Yeah.
I didn't. That doesn't say Lamar against all his rivals. It's against your prime individual rival, your prime team rival, and I guess we could say games in mid to late January, or as I call them, the playoffs. So that would be a problem. But here's why I disagree with you, Brew. For you,
which one is more important?
Right, so that's Lamar play well. That's why I'm saying
even
I
if
disagree
they
with
lose.
You. Well, let's play this out. What is more concerning on Monday? Or let me flip it. What gives you more optimism come Monday? If Lamar absolutely balls out and they lose a heartbreaker like how they beat Cincinnati, or if Lamar's absolute unreal struggles against this team continue, but they win because Russell Wilson makes a few mistakes. And because whether you agree with the totality of that graphic or not, take the KC part out of it. You agree the Steelers, this is a very big game.
Yes.
You agree with that. Yeah. And you agree that the playoff thing is real and it's a legitimate indictment on Lamar.
The playoffs, we just wrong.
All right. So this is like you said, if they lose, the division is wrapped up for Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So this is as close to a playoff-ish game as you can get in the regular season. And if Lamar, even in that context, struggles massively, that to me is more concerning than if the team loses but he plays great. Because given the fact they don't have a great defense, their only path to the Super Bowl is Lamar playing excellent. And we need some more evidence that in the bigger spots, he'll play excellent.
In the first game, he wasn't excellent. But the opening game against the Chiefs, He threw for what, 270 some odd yards, ran for over 100. We were like, where's Derrick Henry? Lamar, now he wasn't perfect. He obviously missed the touchdown pass late.
I think it was his second lowest passer rating of the year.
He threw for a ton of yards and ran for over 100. The running was like, wow, Lamar's coming out here. So he wasn't excellent, but I'm just saying they got to win, man, because that's going to be I just think it's the win is more important. If you have bad games we've seen Mahomes have bad games and win. We've seen Allen, like you can have a bad game. Now, if he's abysmal, I don't see how they're going to win anyway if he's abysmal. But if he throws, say, 2 interceptions, 1 touchdown, not really good, but they win. I don't know. I'll take the win.
I'll take the win.
I'll take the win.
I'm a quarterback wins guy, so it's easy for me.
Nick is too.
Broncos, Chargers. Chargers won the first go-round in Denver, even though the Broncos' defense was all over Justin Herbert. 18 pressures, tied the season high. Nick, is this a win for Justin? Oh, excuse me. Is this a must-win for Justin Herbert?
Yeah. You can't have, and listen, I'm not a quarterback wins guy, but I think they are typically directionally correct. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I do think the better quarterbacks win more and the worst quarterbacks lose. I do. So to stay on that for a moment, you can't have Bo Nix in year 1 match you on playoff appearances and career double-digit win seasons. Which he would, with a win today, Bo Nix does that. Right now, Justin Herbert's one season his team's gotten to 10 wins. They got to it exactly one season they've won a playoff game. Mm-hmm. Every football player quarterback who's ever existed is at the very worst tied with Herbert on playoff victories. And you know what I mean? He's got the 1 Pro Bowl season. Justin Herbert, and I've said this again and again, I will keep saying it, came into the league a B+ and still is. And that's the problem. We can show you a passer rating, again, is not everything, but it is usually a decent snapshot. I mean, so we want to put the slight dip last year on he was banged up, fine. But this year, and this is, maybe I'm spending too much time with Danny Parkins, my dear friend, Breakfast Ball co-host, who simultaneously thinks Herbert's the 3rd best quarterback in the league and also thinks the Broncos are more trustworthy tonight. You can't. They have the number 1 scoring defense, does the Chargers. Right. They have a universally accepted excellent head coach. They're playing a quarterback who is playing some of his, and to me, worse football recently than he was when he was on the hot streak. I know he ended up with 3 touchdown passes in that game. That was a brutal game for him against the Colts. Really that the Colts kind of gave to them and they took from them. And also, they need this game. They're at home. Like, to me, yes, Herbert's got to play well, and they've got to win the game. Yes.
Yeah, it's a must-win. We all love his ability, his talent, his arm talent, his skills. And I think he's a physically tough guy. Like, he's played through injuries and all that stuff. You mentioned that, Nick. So I like all that about him. But at some point, you got to start beating good teams.
Yes.
Like, and I've put a lot of it in the past on Brandon Staley, who was their coach. But You have to start beating good teams. We know he's 0-1 in the playoffs after having a 27-point lead. They just folded and fell apart. And this year, they are 1-5. Even though they're, 8-6? They're 1-5 against teams with winning records. And the one team they beat was Denver, which that was relatively early in the season before Knicks and the Broncos really found their footing. In his career, he's 8-26. Against teams with winning records. He's 30-12 against teams with losing records or 500. So, like, you got to show us that you can win these big games because that's the question now. This is year 5.
Yeah, that's the thing.
5.
It's year 5. So, like, Peyton Manning didn't win a playoff game until year 6, but Peyton Manning had A+ regular season.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Prior to this. Like, to be the talent that everyone swears he is, and to never have had either statistically, individually, or team success-wise, even a single A-level regular season, let alone playoffs, which it's basically a non-existent sample.
He's thrown for a ton of touchdowns in the regular season.
He's thrown for
especially the first 3 years.
A ton of touchdowns, a ton of yards. We're in a weird spot where he is approaching potentially having the most prolific from a yards and touchdown standpoint opening 5 years of his career while being a 500 quarterback and this year having a great head coach and the #1 defense in football. That shouldn't happen.
Can I say this too?
Yeah, go.
This has been look at the Chargers. I mean, they've had some really great quarterbacks. Dan Fouts, Phillip Rivers.
Drew Brees before him.
Briefly. But they haven't been able to win even really close to the big game.
Yeah.
And I don't mean like a playoff game or a big regular season, but getting to the Super Bowl and winning it. Is he in that same group where, man, the dude is excellent individually, but we're not a great team. We can't win. We don't
Rivers
win the
got
big
to
one with it.
one career conference championship game. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.